Welcome to the 2018 Education Symposium. My name is Mary Walters. I am the chair of this year's symposium, and I want to thank you for attending. Every year, the Dallas Bar Association puts on a symposium that tries to reach a wide variety of audiences. And what we're doing is focusing on individuals who have contact with kids in schools, in Dallas County schools, and in surrounding schools. And so this year, the committee worked very hard at trying to come up with some topics that would be interesting for participants and perhaps move the ball forward in their understanding of difficult topics, or identifying people that you might want to reach out to when you have a question about a particular topic. And so there are one person in particular I would like to thank, because while I'm chairman of the symposium this year, a very important partner for me is the Caruth Institute at SMU. And so I would like everyone to give Diane Samosky a hand, because she is instrumental. She is really instrumental in getting this program going and bringing the depth of knowledge of issues involving children to the symposium. What I thought I'd do very briefly is tell you how the day is going to run and give you a couple of logistics. The logistics are easy. If you leave this room, immediately behind you there is coffee. There are also restrooms up the stairs to your left. So to your left, my right, there are restrooms right up the stairs. You can also continue down the hall. There's a larger set of restrooms. What we are going to do is, in this room, all of the panels and individual speakers that you will listen to, except for lunch, will be in this room. For lunch, I'll stand up and tell you how this is going to flow, but there is a buffet immediately outside of these doors. You will get your buffet and then move to the ballroom, which there will be a large group of people, because you will be joining about 200 students and teachers for the presentation of the Jack Lowe Award and our keynote speaker, Marquise Fomby. Then, after lunch, you'll come back here. So, with that sort of logistical layout, I'll tell you briefly about the speakers. We're going to start with Kyle Berger on cybersecurity. We think that there are always trends that adults who interact with children would want to know, and he keeps this information current and can share that kind of information with you. Then we're going to do what is a topic that I learned about a lot this year, and it's ARDS. We received, as a committee, requests for information on ARDS, procedures, what they are, how to make it through them. And I thought, is there any way to make ARDS less hard? So we've got two practitioners who are going to talk about practices with ARDS. They're lawyers, one who represents school districts, one who represents parents. Then we're going to move into confidentiality. I, as a lawyer, think there is a confidentiality maze, the deal that adults who interact with children have to deal with. Who can share what information and in what context for what purpose? So we are going to have two panels that address that, and we are really looking for audience participation here. If you have a question for those panelists, or about anything throughout the day, there's a microphone in the middle. Please jump in. It keeps things moving, and if we can answer your question, we will. Some may be more complicated than can be answered immediately, but please give the panelists a chance and ask the questions, because if nothing else, it'll let everyone know what might be a topic or an issue that they might not have confronted, but you might have confronted. And then after that, we've got two panels left. One is a very interesting topic, a podcast. We're going to have a podcast of someone who has aged out of school, and then panelists will comment on that podcast. Finally, our last panel is going to be the next chapter. What do you do? What can you recommend to students after they've completed high school, after they have aged out of the foster care system? So when we look at the course of the day, it's the beginning. How do you keep them secure? What information can you share to make their days go better? How can you help them if they have special needs? How do you approach that? Then an experience, and finally, what kinds of advice can you give them about what they can do now in high school and in the future? So with that brief introduction of the day, I would like to turn the lectern over to Kyle Berger, who will speak on cybersecurity.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Everybody made it safely? Anybody ride the scooters in? No? I'm going to add the scooters to apps that are dangerous. I'm going to add that to my list. You need to avoid those scooters out there. Well, I'm honored to be here to speak with you all today. Been here a few times to talk about all the different things around technology, cybersecurity, and the things that our students are getting their hands on that we need to be a little more familiar with today. As we know, it's very different from when all of us were growing up playing Oregon Trail or Where in the World's Carmen Sandiego. That was the extent of the mischief, to a much different world that we're in nowadays. So again, my name is Kyle Berger. I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer for Grapevine Colleyville ISD. We're a little over 13,000 kiddos out there and a complete one-to-one for about 8 years. So I've got everybody from kindergarten to 12th grade with a device in their hand, and they take it home 24/7, so they have it all summer, all over the place. So I've got 13,000 kiddos that want to beat everything we try to do to keep them in the right path of appropriate internet and other usage every day. So I get to learn a lot every day from my kids and hopefully share some of those with y'all here as well. Some of the challenges we have is what a lot of us see. We also have this very large virtual school, so I have about 750 students around the world that attend our school out of Texas here. So we get to connect with kids from all over and experience some of the things that they experience, quite different technology related. So with that, today we talk a little bit about cybersecurity, cyber threats, our students in general, and the biggest thing around data privacy and the things that are occurring with students nowadays. So kind of as the graphic shows, it's usually the IT department, oh no, we've had this great massive data leak, or somebody's got into our data and everybody's standing around just looking. Well, we're all in the same boat. It's not just my data that's getting out there, it's everybody else's as well. So we're all in this boat together, so we all have to do our own part in trying to make it as secure as possible, from our kids to our staff to all the other administrators in our districts as well. So when we talk about school districts, a lot of folks don't realize that we are the second tier or the second level of threat being by cyber hackers and the cyber industry altogether. So we on the Dark Lord on the web, 2 years ago initiated that ed tech or educational technology, and school districts are going to be the prime target to get all this data from. And so that kind of opened the eyes to many that here's these school districts that have a wealth of information, personal identifiable information, and maybe not the best security. So these might be the greatest targets for us to try to get into and infiltrate. So when you look at that, there's just a map from the past 2 years of data breaches, cyber threats, and hacking that have occurred just for school districts. That's just school districts across the United States. Each color represents a different type of attack that has happened to those. We can come down into Texas here and kind of see that we're very fortunate here in DFW that we get to experience this quite often. So these are all different types of threats that are happening over the past 2 years. That's just 2 years. To where student information, banking information, or other types of stuff like that has been exposed and put into the dark web or held for ransom. Last year we talked a little bit about how the cyber criminals hold your data for ransom with stuff called ransomware and stuff like that, where they expect you to pay money back to get it. So that's still a growing trend in ransomware. It actually just happened 2 weeks ago. District north of Fort Worth got hit with ransomware but was able to recover. So it still happens every day. But you can see the trend in the metropolitan areas, of course, and usually your higher populated areas that are throughout the districts, and then around the border we see a lot more of the ransomware attacks. So why? We kind of talked about a little bit. 79% of schools technically don't have the proper resources when it comes to protecting. The topic of physical security, of course, is top of mind for everybody right now, and it should be always for all of our students and staff. But the same thing that a lot of school districts are realizing is the same for the cyber or the technical side. We just don't have enough money or resources applied to these other sides of protecting our students and our data overall. So with that, 72% of the schools also admit they don't have enough staff, but I think that's probably true in every single area. I've never met a school district that says, you know what, I have enough staff, we're good, we don't need anything else. So, but us technology folks won't always say that too, hey, we're the same. And of course, budgets. I've never met a district that has too much money, but security budgets are typically 50% less. That's at the max. I'd say we're probably more at 30% or 70%. We probably have 30% of what a normal company would have when it comes to security for technology-related budgets overall, and 70% lower than overall telecom and retail. But when you think about it, like my school district, I've got a little over 13,000 students. So that's 13,000 students' personal identifiable information, plus all my employees. So it gives me about 15,000 that are active in my system, not to mention the ones that come in and out every day, every year. And how do we protect that? So it's usually an eye-opener when we talk to staff and we say things like, you have to change your password. And they get kind of upset about that. And I said, well, I have all your banking information. I've got all this stuff that I'm trying to protect that's yours. And then they start to understand a little bit more. Oh, okay, that's kind of important. So let's work together to try to protect those things. So the biggest threat that we always visit about, no matter how much money we put in there, how much technology we can do, it's those crazy emails that everybody gets that either ask for stuff or want you to click on a link. Everybody's gotten those, right? Non-stop. Just keeps coming and coming and coming. We probably get on average in our school district about 4 unique ones a week at least, and then all the typical ones come in. Every day there's probably about 50 that come in through the district, but at least 4 different unique ones that we haven't seen before a week that come through. And then they start getting a little more sophisticated, the ones that actually are mimicking somebody within your organization. So they're actually using somebody in your organization's name, actually using their email address. Or even worse, they're using the email address of a company you work really closely with, but maybe you've never really met that person, but I've just talked to them through email a lot or maybe on the phone. So they start mimicking them online to connect with you overall. So you can see that 77% of educational institutes perceive that employees are their biggest threat. It's probably more like 97% in my mind, but it's a scary thing. So a lot of education is important, and unfortunately, just last week or a week ago, hope nobody's here from Henderson. If so, I'm sorry. Henderson ISD got this wonderful email. They're doing a bond project, so they're spending lots of money with construction companies. They got an email from this construction company that says, hey, guess what? We changed our banking information. Here's our new account, so go ahead and send our payment over. Okay, let's do that. It's over $600,000 gone. Click of a button. So what happened? Well, this one's kind of sad because what really happened is it went to a person in the accounts payable, it usually sends the bills out. They got it, and they actually did get up and go to the CFO and said, hey, I got an email from John Smith at so-and-so company saying banking stuff. Oh, yeah, John Smith, he's the vice president over there. We meet with him. Okay, and that person went back to their desk. They still didn't feel right about it, but they're like, so we're good? We're good. Because we all get busy, right? We all get really busy. And all it took was that one adjustment in the system, a couple of clicks, $600,000 gone. The key thing that we tell, and we really burn this into our business department a lot of times, is the biggest thing you can do is just slow down. Just slow down. Did it really have to be right then? Slow down. I think anybody would appreciate if I'm asking you to send me $600,000, that it might take you 24 hours or 48 hours to get me that, right? I don't think I really need it within the next 5 minutes. Especially if I'm changing my bank account, I think I might appreciate that you want to verify you're really giving me the money. Just like nowadays when somebody asks me for my driver's license on a credit card, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking me for my ID, because that doesn't happen anymore. But these scenarios are happening more and more around us, and unfortunately, with instant payables, that money is gone. They try to track it down, figure out where it's going to, but you can imagine it's nowhere to be found. So we'll be sharing out the slides so you can see some of the interesting information yourself. The key things to always look at in these emails, of course, is the main thing on who's it from. A lot of time it will try to mimic the names of people you know, but they usually change that last part of the email address. So like our school district email address is at gcisd.net. Maybe it's going to say g.cisd.net, or maybe it's going to spell it out or say gcisd.net.com. You know, they'll try to add something in there that you might not pay attention to, or the I will become a number 1. Because if you glance and don't look too close, maybe that looks the same. Those kind of tricks happen all the time, unfortunately. And also, when you hover your mouse over it, a lot of times it'll show you something that's not quite right in that scenario. And then, of course, the attachments or any emails that really have that crazy sense of urgency, because they're really trying to play on that for you. Need it now. Please do this immediately. Those kind of things that are just constantly happening. And then, of course, the content. Some of the most common red flags is misspellings, punctuations, all those kind of things that just seemed odd. And it never hurts just to reply back sometimes and just ask them for more information, or give me a call. Let's talk about it. Because that's the next level that's really starting to happen. We've seen a little bit of North Texas here. We talked a little last year about the vishing aspect of it. So that's when you'll receive the email threat, and then probably about 15 minutes later, you start getting a phone call. And it's somebody asking, did you get my email? You know, I really need you to take care of that. Trying to add that peer pressure onto the effect to try to get you to real quickly do something.
And they usually don't sound like Americans.
They don't sound like Americans. Yeah, usually it's pretty obvious that something's not right. Sometimes they'll use automated calls, so you'll get automated messages that you need to key in information, like, you know, your bank account's been overdrawn, please key in your PIN to verify and be connected to an operator. You key in the PIN, and then guess what? The phone hangs up. Oh, what just happened? Well, you just gave the PIN number to somebody on the other side. So a lot of these automated calls are starting to happen now, targeting individuals within organizations to see what type of information they can get overall. So one thing that we use in our school district, and there's actually free to get started, and I suggest any organization try to use this at first, and it's a company called Novafor, and they help us do simulated email attacks on our own staff. So what we do is we can load up our staff's email addresses in there, and then we can send an email to them to simulate one of these attacks. And when they click on it, it kind of reports back to us to say who's been naughty or who's on the good list, you know. So it goes back and forth, and we can make those attacks seem really realistic, you know, to change a account code, or this is the school district, you need to update your password, those kind of things. So this company does it for free for 100 of your users. So it's a great kind of thing to have a conversation with your staff about, and then just try to use this free tool. Us tech guys do it to try to get money, I'll be honest. So now we can go back to the boss and say, hey, look at this, you know, 50% of us clicked on this. So over the course of a year, what we've done in our district, we started out at about 18% of our staff would click on that. Really not too bad, but 18% of the staff would click on mischievous links. We've got that down to 8, and they really like Starbucks, so we send these fake Starbucks links, and they'll click on those all the time. So they don't like me because then I get mean emails about it's not really free Starbucks. But it really helps them to start learning and identifying what's going on and what type of emails are out there. But it's a great service to have. As you can see, the national average comes out to about 25% is what your organization probably looks like. 1 in 4 are going to click on those things. And it happens quite often, more than you realize. So it's a great free tool to use just to get the conversation started within your organization. So this one's pretty interesting. If you write that site down there, chances are everybody in this room data has already been exposed in some form or fashion. So if you go to this website here and put in your email address, you can put in your personal one or your work one, it's going to show you where your email's been exposed across the world and what data breach it's been involved in. So it's kind of eye-opening. It's a little scary. It is a safe site. People are always like, oh, they're just stealing my email address. No, it's real. So we go to this site here and put in there, and it's going to show you kind of what happens. I'll leave it up there 1 second, and I'll show you mine. So I got exposed 3 times with one of my email accounts. A lot of y'all probably have as well with the bottom one on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, LinkedIn was hacked. A lot of our information was stolen out of LinkedIn, if you realize that or not. Dropbox, if you use Dropbox, it was hacked. A lot of your passwords and things were stolen from there as well. And the other one is a business journal that had a lot of email addresses that this particular email address of mine had on there. So some of y'all, probably if you put those in there, it might be a little eye-opening as you scroll down and see how many times your email, if anybody like falls out or something, passes out when you're doing that here, let us know. We can talk you through it. But these data breaches are real. So we always do this too to open up people's eyes to say, hey, your information is out there, and we need to be careful on what we can do with this overall. So now we'll talk a little bit, going back to our student side, really talking about the aspect of when we're talking with our kids about cybersecurity and the threats and the things that our students need to be aware of and the conversations we need to have with our kids. So this is usually some of the more popular things, unfortunately, that I get to talk about because of the ever-changing applications or mobile app world, right? And the ever-changing world that our kids live in. So growing up, we were told not to talk to strangers, right? Then eventually we were told, don't get in cars with strangers, okay? Then you fast forward to 2008 or so, then it was, okay, if you meet somebody online, don't go alone, right? Nowadays, we use an app to call a stranger to get into a stranger's car. It's kind of weird, huh? So, we're going Uber, but I was told all through life never to do that. Don't talk to a stranger and don't get in their car. But I'm just doing it free will. Well, that's the way our students are being raised, is that type of connection. So that line is blurred. There is no worries of talking to strangers anymore. There is no worries of, who I'm going to go meet up with. This is just the way that they're living nowadays. So as you can see, over 50,000 sexual predators are online at any given time, and majority of the crimes occur to minors, as to be expected, through all these various apps. And 16% of teenagers consider meeting somebody online. 8% have, and 75% will do it again and again. So each year we talk about all these apps, and there's icons of all these apps up here, and there's new ones all the time, and a lot of the old ones die. So we're not going to talk about some of the ones you're probably more familiar with. I'm going to assume everybody knows what Snapchat probably is. They like to put the Snapchat filter on there or get a crazy Snapchat streak going. Do we know what we're talking about with Snapchat? A little bit. Us older people get Snapchat, yeah. Instagram is still kind of cool, but Snapchat's taken over Instagram. Facebook is us old people, remember that. So my disclaimer, these apps are considered not safe by me and others in the industry. It's not Grapevine, Colleyville, ISD, if you work for these app companies, saying that you are not safe. So just have to say that. So this one is growing popularity more and more. We're seeing it taking over Snapchat and ending up in the front office of our schools. House Party. So House Party has really, it took the old phone call or the phone groups that you used to have in the old days on party lines, there you go. Took the old party line and took it to the video world. So party lines, but in the video aspect of it, really grew strong in college, as you can imagine, and now is really growing faster and faster in the community. So as you can imagine, it groups you up with groups of 8. What they're finding with this app is a lot of peer pressure type scenarios that happen with these groups, unfortunately. So you can imagine possibly a group of boys, a couple of girls get on there, and the peer pressure from the video chat, things start happening, other things start happening inside the chat. These kind of things are really starting to pick up in the House Party app between kids, and especially bullying aspects too. This is one of the ones that if I would see on my kid's phone, definitely want to get off the phone. The Live Me app is still a very popular one, but one of the key things to look up there, just 2 months ago, over 600,000 accounts were deleted from this program because they were directly associated to pedophiles. 600,000. What's the chance that the kids who were on here thinking they were talking to somebody else was talking to a pedophile? It is insane. And so this app is, again, a live streaming app, but it allows you to pay the people to keep doing their live video. So this is the gateway. I laugh, it's like kind of the gateway drug for those YouTube stars. Those that think they're going to make millions on YouTube, they start on Live Me because they can get virtual coins, gifts, and those kind of things given to them to keep their broadcast going. But pedophiles love that, as you can imagine, because as they're watching the live feeds, they pay virtual coins or gifts to these kids to keep their feeds going or to get other types of content, unfortunately, from the kids. So usually when we see this on a kid's phone, we really talk about it a lot. Who they're really talking to, do they really realize who they're talking to? And those kind of things around that. Unfortunately, this was the number 6 grossing app over the past month of all the apps in the world. It ranges in the top 10 monthly. So we kind of keep trends on this to kind of see how the popularity is going. But it's still up there really high with the amount of money it's pulling in. And like I said, when you just think about 600,000 pedophiles, I think if you just say that to a kid, if they have that on their device, say, do you realize that they just deleted 600,000? that they might have a different thought about making their live videos and what they're doing online with this app. Whisper app is kind of an older one that's still hanging around. We saw it here locally a couple of months ago as well, here in an act out of DeSoto. The Whisper app really is one that lets you get out there and tell secrets. I just want to anonymously tell secrets to folks. I don't know who to talk to. And when we talk about kids and advocacy and stuff, what do we know? They're always reaching out, right? They want to reach out to somebody to talk to. And these apps are the best way, unfortunately, for them to do that, they feel, and they feel comfortable doing that. So they go to these apps and they talk about it, they mention their secrets or their concerns, and then somebody starts building that trust with them inside these apps. And then they leverage to these meetups and what's going on, because inside of these apps, it's showing your location. It shows where you're at when you're telling these secrets, all right? So there's really no secrecy behind it in a sense. As you see from the story in the bottom right there, the app, this gentleman was talking with a girl in the Whisper app back and forth. Within about 5 minutes, they agreed to meet, and then 5 minutes later, he was already at her residence. That's crazy. So in a total 10 minutes from just meeting this guy in an app, he was already at her house. All based off of location, starting to build that conversation and talking back and forth. So it's one of those that we just need to really keep watching. We've seen it over and over again with our students in this area, but it's one really a lot that we see with the kids. Unfortunately, from the broken homes or adopted and foster kids, we see the Whisper app a lot more common with those students. These are some of the newer alternatives. So we showed this to parents because in case you tell your kids, I don't want you on Snapchat and I don't want you on WhatsApp, that's okay. I'm just going to use these other ones because they're basically the same. IMO and LiveView. LiveView is growing in popularity. The funny thing, though, is all these, and just like Snapchat, too, the terms of service is really 17 and plus. So the age of the app, when you read all those, because everybody reads all those, right, when you're clicking to download them, it's 17 plus on there. And they do that to protect themselves legally, of course. But we know their target audience is much different. So same thing, the IMO and LiveView is alternative for them. Not necessarily bad, but it's the next wave for Snapchat. So a lot of can connect you with strangers, talking, doing video conversations, those kind of things as well. There isn't any documented stories as of yet, but we've seen those from the other two apps. So we're just kind of put those out there on our radar as what's up and coming for our students. The next one's kind of crazy, and we put some of the legal verbiage on there again because nobody actually reads what it is. And this one's called Mappin', and it's supposed to be for making something happen, and it's for meetups with strangers or whoever. So if we had Mappin' here and somebody else had Mappin' and we wanted to meet, I could just put, I want to meet, and it'd show where I'm at, and somebody else would do that, and it'd show where they're at, and we'd just meet up, right? But the whole purpose of the Mappin' app is actually to collect data from you to sell to advertisers. So in the back end, and they put it out there, all these kind of things that they're collecting on you. They're collecting your name, address, age, birthday, passwords, phone numbers, schools you attend, where you're walking, device identifiers, your bio, your country, everything. They're just collecting everything they can off of your phone and tracking it by geolocation, because then they can make a lot of money on that selling to advertising companies, right? So a lot of these apps try to mask another aspect of it just to get your data and then what they can do with that data. So there's really no good reason to have this app, but a lot of people don't realize what they're actually intended on doing on the back end with all the data overall. So that's a little bit scary, but they make a lot of money doing this and selling your GPS data to a lot of corporations. So be aware of that when coming in. In real life, IRL is really growing. Did any of y'all receive, it was popular a couple of months ago, you get that strange text message from IRL. You got a strange text message that says somebody just complimented you on this app. Click here to see what they said. I don't know if anybody got those, but it was really popular. You saw some stuff on the news. And who doesn't want to know who just complimented me, right? Well, once you click on that, it downloads the app on your phone, and then, now you're kind of in the vicious cycle of IRL in real life. So it's kind of supposed to be the event planning app for kids. It has a lot of meetups. We're all going to meet up at the Belo and have a great little cool conversation on legal stuff, or meet up for drinking, meet up for anonymous meetups and all these other kind of things. So this app is one that just encourages that interaction with strangers and different things as well, and has been pretty popular in that aspect of it. But It's one mainly we see just because of the spreading of the compliments and the texts that come back and forth overall. Musically, we know about Musically. A lot of folks, Musically was really popular for kids that do little music videos, but then it started getting in trouble because kids were doing a lot of bullying through Musically, because parents thought, that's a cool video, my kid's singing on there and stuff, but then a lot of bullying was happening through Musically. So Musically is now combined with another company to get rid of that stigma. So now they're called TikTok. So they do that because, of course, parents get on board and realize that Musically is bad, so you cannot have that on your phone. Well, I don't. I have TikTok, which is the exact same thing. But this company is really trying, and we kind of put that out there for them because they're really trying to make it better for parents. So at the bottom, they show all these settings that parents can go in and do to protect their kids, but they admit less than 10% of their users actually use the functionality, because parents don't get on there and actually look at the apps and understand what their kids have. So that's a growing concern. We get out there to educate folks because it's a very popular app on how you can go out there and just, reassign and get the rights on there to make sure your kids aren't talking to strangers, talking to only people they accept, and have those kind of conversations overall. The Lipsy app, this is an interesting one because it's another one of those anonymous ones, but also based on location. So if I turn this app on, it's going to show me everybody else with the app within about 100 yards of me so that we can start having different conversations. As you can imagine, pedophiles and other folks of that nature really love that because they'll go sit at the park, turn the app on, see what they hit within 100 yards of them, then start having those conversations because now I can connect to you, start having different conversations and watching who's reacting or different things of that nature. And you can choose to reveal or not your identity on it, but a lot of times students are always saying yes, so they want to show where they're at, who they're talking to, and those kind of things. Same in apps. Like a lot of times when you download an app, your phone will ask you, do you want it to have access to your microphone, or do you want it to have access to your contacts? The kids are saying, oh, yeah, because if they say no, then something on the app just doesn't work, or it says, you can't enjoy the full app without saying yes. It just keeps asking. So that's where they turn on their location ability, their chat, and all those other kind of things turn on inside the app. This one is kind of growing in the popularity due to the anonymous texting ability, especially within a 100-yard radius. So bullying happens a lot inside of this app. So if I was in the high school cafeteria and all of us had that and turned it on, we could anonymously just start talking about somebody with the whole group here, and nobody would know who's saying it. And then everybody starts commenting and dogpiling on that because nobody knows who's saying anything, as you can imagine. So the bullying aspect of these apps is tremendous, unfortunately, and we really have seen that growth happening more and more. The Scored app this is the app for all those gamers out there. And if y'all have kiddos in the Fortnite world, Roadblocks, Fortnite, and all those video games that they're constantly playing, or they're on their video Xbox and all that with their headphones on chatting. Well, some parents say, I'm not going to allow you to do that. You can't be on the chat and the headphones. I don't know what language is happening on there. Okay, well, they've developed this app, Discord, which is built for gamers to do the chatting and all that within the app. So there's groups, and you sign in, and you say what game you're playing, and the other people are playing that. So now they're carrying on the conversations here because mom and dad won't let me do it on the video game with the headphones. I'm just on my phone having those same types of conversations. So as you can imagine, a lot of pedophiles, a lot of adult content. Sadly enough, this one was linked to the white supremacist group for trying to advocate and get people to join. There was a big thing in the Carolinas about it as they discovered that. But a lot of sexual predators and others inside of this app trying to connect with kids. So anytime, even though you're telling your kids or you have those rights set in those various games that they're playing, that they can't chat and they can't do that, you always look at these other ways that they're trying to get around and do it, because they're going to find a way to do it. It's like I say in the old days when we used to not have laptops and stuff for the kids, and it was bring your own device to school, and some school districts were like, that's not going to happen. We already told them it's happening. Your kids already have it. They're going to find a way no matter what to bring these kind of things to you. The other one that's been advertised by the police, start talking about it as the pedophile's heaven, is the Holler app. So this one just randomly connects you to strangers. You get in it, say go, it's just going to randomly connect you to a video chat with a stranger and then allow you to connect back and forth. You can then friend that stranger, keep the conversation going. So sex trafficking and others have really been tied to this app as they just randomly go on there to find folks to talk to. And then from there, do meetups and other things, unfortunately, to create that unsafe environment overall for the students. So outside of that, we get into some of the ones that go to where all of our bad stuff is going. So this one I tell parents, if you see the Red Onion app on any of your kids' devices, there's no need at all to do this app. So this app is the one that goes to what they call the dark web on the internet. So everybody realizes that there's probably 90% of the internet that you never see. We all kind of hang out on the surface internet up there in Google and all that. Then you go to the deeper side of the internet, the medical stuff and some of those. And then you go to the dark web, which is like the really nasty stuff. A lot of where they're selling your data, those kind of things all happens on the dark web. Probably nobody in this room knows how to get to the dark web, but they get this app and then it gets them, it's like the doorway to the dark web. So this app is used for a lot of stuff. Kids started going to this app in order at school to beat the internet filters so that I can do anything I wanted to at school. Then they start getting exposed to a lot of other stuff. But the problem is when you connect to the dark web, that's where all the hackers and the cyber criminals are at. When you connect there, they're also connecting to you. Because, hey, somebody new just came in, so they're now connected to those kids, getting information from those kids, doing tracking and other kind of hacking activity related to that as well. So the Red Onion app is one that we tell people there's no need. I've seen it twice, unfortunately, this year, so we're expecting it to kind of trend a little bit more as well here in North America, at least. The next one is some of y'all might say, hey, I could really use that. Kids love it because for bullying. This is, back before caller ID, doing prank calls was really fun at parties and doing those kind of things. And now we can't do that without caller ID, but now they have burner, you've heard of burner phones, right? Well, I got burner numbers. So I go to the phoner app and I just create fake phone numbers in the app and I can call, text, message, do whatever I want. And then that number disappears. It's a burner number. So I could be texting people anything I want to and saying whatever I want. They won't know what it is. We've seen this one come up more with kids doing self-harm. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes kids kind of bully themselves for attention or might say that they're being bullied. They'll create the numbers and stuff with this app and send messages to themselves and kind of engage in this, so when they're going to talk to parents or others that, look, this person is doing this to me, or those things. It's a cry for attention. Unfortunately, that happens, so a lot of the self-help, self-initiating things come from that. So these two apps are pretty popular, Burner and the Phoner, the second one there. Those two apps are used a lot, as you can imagine, for any of those kind of anonymous things. So I would say if you have that on your kids have that on their phone, it might be worth a conversation on why we need that and what we expect to be doing with that app overall. So one thing here as we get to the end that we talk about, and we do in our school district, and I encourage everybody in their district to really try to have these conversations with parents. So we have our Family Parent Technology Academy, and monthly we bring in about 200 to 300 parents just to talk about things like this in general. We have our overall app sessions is about an hour and a half worth of just apps like crazy that we go through and talk about. And then we have some with the kids too, and it's kind of eye-opening. We sit the kids there, pull the phones out, and let's have a talk. We show parents how to find the apps on their phone and do those kind of things. Social media danger, digital citizenship, all these kind of things. And as you can see, I'm even now having to do Fortnite for parents to teach parents about the game and how to have conversations with their kids about it. But we strongly encourage districts or other organizations to have these types of events, because the only thing that can really beat this stuff is the conversation. Number one thing I usually get asked is, what app can I download to watch my kid's phone? There's a lot of them. There's some really good ones that are out there, but there's nothing better than having that conversation with your child. And I know sometimes they're not going to listen to you, so you drag this guy up here and I just sit there and try to scare him to death about it. And then maybe they'll listen a little bit, but over time it'll start sinking in. I mean, how can you ignore 600,000 pedophiles are on this thing? And you're there? What are you thinking? So we kind of have these conversations a lot. So I encourage organizations to do that. I'll come out and talk with them as well. We can have that done just to kind of help spread the message. If we save one of them, we're saving a lot of them. So it's really worth having those talks all together. So I know we have a little bit of time. I wondered if anybody had individual questions about certain apps that they're seeing now or things that they're experiencing that they would like to know about.
How do you find if they're hidden, if they're
The hidden apps?
Check the phone,
Yep.
but you don't really know.
So how can we find hidden apps on their phone? So of course, there's apps that they can download that helps them hide stuff. So there's lots of those too. So if you email me, I can email all of y'all my full spreadsheet of apps that shows this stuff on there. But the easiest way to find a hidden app on an iPhone, we'll start with iPhone since it's the predominant one on there. The easiest way is to swipe down from the top or swipe all the way to the left and you get to what they call the spotlight search, to where you can find stuff on your phone. So if you swipe all the way to the left and you get the search thing on your iPhone and type the app name in, it's going to find it if it's on that phone anywhere, because the kid's going to hide it in high school, math, homework, don't look at this, I hate math folder, and you're probably like, I'm not going to look in that folder. Well, if you type it in there on the search, it's going to see if it's on there. The other easy way is go to the App Store. And as you know, in the App Store, if you've ever downloaded an app, it knows. So when you're in the App Store and you type the app name in, you're either going to have the little cloud on it, which means it's been downloaded to the phone before, or it's going to have the open, which means it's somewhere on the phone. Now, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes peer pressure kids will download apps. They might download it and be like, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this. But at least it's a conversation you can have with your child on why did you download that, and have those talks back and forth. Android has similar things to where you can do the search as well, but Android has built-in hidden features in it to where you can hide apps too. So does that kind of help? All right. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. I was here last year, and you I think it was you did kind of a similar rundown of here's some apps to be on the lookout for. And I know not all parents accept come to these types of things. So, because there's new ones that come out every year. So, what advice would you give us to kind of stay ahead of that curve and learn about them and find out about them, because we're not ready to look here.
Yeah, so it is difficult. So from year to year, or actually every month, I update the different presentation because apps fall off, change names due to lawsuits, or come back. So one company, there's not a real easy way. Common Sense Media is one company that kind of has some app research, but sometimes they don't keep up with the trends as fast. How I keep up with what's coming is there's a site called App Annie, and Annie like the name, and that company is one that marketing companies use to track who to sell to. So it shows what's the number one app that's being downloaded now by region, by all that kind of stuff. So we watch that app to kind of see what's happening, what's coming our way. And for us too, it's a lot of talking with our assistant principals and the kids. So I have student tech advisory committees. I go and sit with the kids at least once a month and talk about what's going on. Of course, the first couple of months, you're not going to get anything. You got to build that relationship like anything else. And then they start telling you, but I can drop, hey, do you know IRL? Oh, that's so old, man. We use this. Oh, okay. Those kind of things happen. But if you follow, I'll plug, if you follow me on Twitter there too, if you're on Twitter folks there, EdTechCTO, I put out as I'm finding them, I tweet a lot about the new apps that are coming in and that you need to be aware of. So you can either go back through the history on some of those or send me an email and tweet, and I can send you my updated list too, because it does change constantly, unfortunately. It's a game, I guess you can say, but one we all have to try to keep in front of. So.
The Twitter again, I can't.
Twitter is EdTech, so EdTechCTO. Well, hopefully you learned a little bit something new this time about a couple of new apps and scary things out there. Don't forget to check your email address on that website, see where all your bad information's gone to, unfortunately. Did anybody have a chance to do that while they were sitting here? Yeah, couple. So unfortunately it's there, but thank y'all for having me here. I'll be around during breaks and stuff if you have any other questions or things you want to talk about. Thank y'all so much.